I'm Montgomery County Auditor Carl Keith, and we are here for another episode of Auds and Ends. Auds and Ends is a program sponsored by the Montgomery County Auditor's Office, where we have conversations with different individuals in the community that are out making a difference. And today we are really honored to have someone with us who has made a career of making a difference, several different careers really of making a difference. And I'm speaking of Ambassador Tony Hall, who is here with us today. And Tony, thank you so much for taking the time to spend a little time with us today. I'm really honored to have to.
Carl, it's good to be with you as always.
Thank you.
You're a good friend, good man.
So again, no one's made a difference in the community, not only in the Dayton community, but worldwide. I mean, you've had an influence internationally on some issues. Let's just kind of talk a little bit about your career. One thing I noted, you've been a state representative, a state senator, member of Congress, ambassador. One thing I noticed when I was looking up your career, I want to go back to when you first got elected state representative in Dayton. Whose seat did you take?
It was a guy by the name of Bob.
I think it was Bob Roederer.
Bob Roederer.
Bob Roederer. Right. And the only reason I mentioned Bob Roederer is because then after you took his seat, then he became county auditor, didn't he? Or county treasurer, county treasurer, and then I
think it was county treasurer. Yes.
Yeah, and then eventually county auditor.
Right.
So you see, there's a connection there.
Yeah, there is. There is for sure.
But yeah, you spent time in the House, in the Senate, and then you're in Congress 24 years.
24 years. Yeah.
Any thoughts on those years in public service? I mean, you could probably talk all day about it, right?
Well, I love being a public servant. I mean, it's a good life. You can do good things, and we're really in public life to help people, and not really. Benefit ourselves, not really to benefit our party. It's to benefit people, benefit our country. And I enjoy that. I love public service.
What got you started?
I think probably got me thinking about it was in the Peace Corps. And I was in the Peace Corps, we're going back a long time, 1966, 67. And I was sent...
the early days of the Peace Corps.
Very early days. Mm-hmm. And I was sent to Thailand. And Thailand in those days was a country that was very pro-America, but it was during the Vietnam War.
All right.
And I was a teacher in a vocational high school about halfway between Chiang Mai, which is a resort town way up in the mountains of Thailand, and Bangkok, which was the capital. And it was a great experience for me. It taught me a lot about life, taught me a lot about myself. It teaches you, when you live with the poor, it teaches you to get away from yourself, to think about something other than yourself. And I was a young man. Mm-hmm. I was not married. I was not attached. And I began to, work with the poor, live with the poor. I lived under a mosquito net.
Okay.
No air conditioning. My windows were open, so birds are flying in and out. And I took my shower out of a bucket, out of a well.
Okay.
And sometimes the food that you're eating, it was moving, so you got to be careful what you're eating. But anyway, the Thai people were great. They were wonderful. They were fun to be with, and I worked on some projects there. I learned I had never been poor, and I came from Dayton, Ohio. My family had done well, and so I grew up.
Your dad's a former mayor.
He was a former mayor, and he was a businessman. He was very successful, and we led a pretty good life, from the standpoint of in many ways, but financially, and to go over and live and eat like that and live like that, and I think I made $70 a month, and it was plenty.
Mm-hmm. It was plenty in Thailand.
It was plenty. Mm-hmm. And but it taught me a lot about the poor, how they struggle, and so that got me started.
Yeah.
It got me started thinking about public life, and I began to see, you know, it was during the war in Vietnam. I began to see our government, how it operated in Thailand, and Vietnam, of course, was very close, and about some of the things that we do that are good and some of the things we do that are not so good.
Mm-hmm.
So it got me thinking, you know, I can be part of this. Maybe I can help. So
Was it a dangerous time? Did you feel like you were in any danger?
no, I didn't. Peace Corps volunteers have very few of them in the world have ever been killed as a result of being involved in being close to a war effort, because the people of the community protect them because they realize that they're not there.
They're there to help.
They're there to help. They're not there to change their government. They're not there to change their thinking. They're there to help them with whatever their problems might be.
Well, good. Now, it was a long journey between there and what you're doing now, and you spent some time as a UN ambassador, focusing on food and hunger. That was an amazing time in your career as well, right?
It was an amazing time, and you know, I was drawn. I've always been drawn towards helping people, drawn towards the poor, and then I became, after a few years, I became chairman of a subcommittee on international hunger. So it was my job to go and travel and see different places and report back to Congress what I was looking at, what I was seeing, places that maybe we could help. And one of the first trips I ever took was to Ethiopia.
Okay.
And I saw 25 children die one morning, and they died of hunger. And I never got over that. I saw mothers were giving me their dead babies.
Oh.
As I walked between them, I think they thought I was a doctor,
No.
and they thought maybe I could
help.
bring them back to life. And I'm thinking, what is this? What's going on? Thailand or Ethiopia at the time was in a civil war, and and at the same time they were experiencing drought, which turned into a famine. Excuse me. And so people were malnourished, and people were sick, and people were hungry, and people were fighting, and I mean there was all kinds of things going on. There was bullets flying over our head. It was that kind of a situation. And so I was traveling with a group, Mother Teresa's group, Mothers of Charity, and I saw all these people that were running for their life, and they just got tired. And there was about 10,000 of them on a plateau, and they all just started to lay down, dehydrated, hungry, sick, and moan. And then as I walked between them, I saw these 25 children die in about 15 minutes. Never seen anything like that.
Never forget that.
I'll never forget that.
Never forget that.
And that got me thinking, well, you know, this is what I'm going to specialize in. As a congressman, I'm going to work on this issue. I'm going to work on hunger. I'm going to work on humanitarian things. I'm going to work on the rule of law. And this is what I
Became
wanted.
your life's work. Became your life's work.
I did.
And so it eventually ended up, you're here and you do the Hall Hunger Initiative. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, that started,
There's a lot that went on in between those things.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
that started a few years ago when I read in a magazine, or not in a magazine, in Dayton Daily News, that Dayton was the fourth hungriest city in the country. And I thought, how could that be?
Because you've seen some really hungry places, right?
Yeah. And so I called some friends and I said, can you research this? Is this true? Because I find it a hard time to believe this. And we did research it. And it was true. And the fact is that, you know, when we lost all of our automobile plants,
Yes.
and you remember those days, how difficult it was.
Right.
Well, when you lose 40,000 people and they lose their jobs, and they were paid well, and they were good people, and they were out of work, and you know, that started a whole problem with hunger and people leaving the area, and a lot of programs and businesses shut down.
Foreclosures and oh yeah.
You know all about that.
Yep,
You're
yep.
an expert, and that produced that situation. I thought, well, we got to do something about it, and you know, I called some friends, former Senator Nick Zimmers, and my good friend Rick Carney, who you know, and I said we got to do something about this. So we started the Hall Hunger Initiative, and you know, we want to break down barriers, you know, to people that are having trouble with food. And one of the first things we got involved with was the Gem City Market.
Right.
You know,
Because we had these food deserts. We had food deserts within our community.
that's right. And it's interesting. A lot of people don't know what a food desert is, but we know what it is here. It's areas that don't have grocery stores, so people have to go to the suburbs. So if you're a senior citizen,
That's difficult.
a woman with children, I mean, you know, you take the bus downtown, you take the bus to the suburbs. I mean, that's not only does it take it a long time, but how much can you carry?
Right. Right.
I mean, so it's a real hardship. So a lot of our grocery stores, well, they all shut down except for one in Dayton. So the community got together, and the community was wonderful. The Dayton community really responded, and I became chairman of raising the money, and we raised over $5 million, and we had a lot of good friends and people in the community helping. And now we have the Gem City Market, and it's right in the middle, as you know, on Salem Avenue, and it's working out. And
Doing really well.
people own it. We have
The
fresh-
community owns it. The community owns it.
the community own it. They work it, and it belongs to them.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we did, and you know, we do micro grants, maybe of $5,000 to groups that are just getting started, or maybe they need a truck and they just don't have the money, or maybe and we do other things like the Mima Valley meals, you know, getting them started and helping them with these chefs that produce these. They produce 4,000 meals a week. So the Hunger Initiative, that's what we do. We try to remove the barriers to people that are hungry or malnourished or that need help.
So this project is pretty well focused on in Dayton. It's a Dayton
It's
initiative.
focused on Montgomery County.
Okay.
And but a lot of it, of course, is in Dayton, and kind of the counties around us, but it's mostly focused in Montgomery County.
Okay. But you've remained active on the world stage as well on this issue. I know, I understand you've been to more than 120 countries in your career.
I have.
And so you remain active worldwide on addressing issues of hunger and.
I still do. I mean, I'm 81, and I'm still traveling to some of these countries. One of the countries I recently went to was Kosovo.
Yeah, right.
And Kosovo, you know, is a country, it's a country about the size of, a little bit larger than Delaware. Has about 1.8 million to 2 million people. It's right in the middle of the Balkans. It's in southeast Europe. And it's a country that has undergone some amazing transformation. They were in a war in 1999, 1998 with Serbia, and you know, they lost thousands of people and many children. Half their population had to leave the country, was expelled. Half the houses in the country were destroyed. By fire. And over 20,000 women in the country were raped by the Serbian forces coming in, supported by Russia. And it's just, and they are recovering now. So I have a good friend that I've known for many years who's from Kosovo, and he was a former ambassador, former minister in the government. He said, Tony, we have some friends in The Hague and that are facing trials as a result of this war. Would you be willing to get on a plane and go over there and spend some time with them, pray with them, have dinner with them, talk to them in jail? And I said, fine. So I got on the plane, flew across the ocean, spent 2.5, 3 days with him.
Okay.
And it was amazing. And some of my best friends, when I told them that, I said, you're 81. You're going to get on a plane and fly across the, what are you, nuts? You don't even know these people. But it was a...
It probably meant a lot to them.
It meant a lot to them. And it was, I thought maybe it'll help, but they blessed me. They were so overwhelmed that I would do this, that I would spend time with them.
And what are they on trial for?
They are on trial for crimes against humanity, but all the evidence so far that I've seen comes from Russia and Serbia. And they have been in jail now for 2 years, and the trial started, and it's going to go on for another 3 years.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you talk about a lack of justice. I don't know whether they're guilty or not. And it's not for me to judge that. It is for me, as Mother Teresa says in Matthew 25, we're to feed people and we're to visit people in prison. So that's what I did.
Okay.
It was a great experience. And then recently, in the last few months, I visited Kosovo, and I visited the parents and the family of the men that are in prison.
Okay.
And then I talked to some of the public officials, the heads of state in Kosovo, and I listened to them. And it's a building process now that's going on in Kosovo. I mean, it really, when half the homes in Kosovo were destroyed, and the businesses, everything was destroyed. I mean, they are coming back in such an amazing way. Kosovo people are amazing.
So you said they were in a rebuilding. They're recovering from all of that,
Yeah.
But still a long way to go.
They got a long way to go, but if you look at the country, I thought, my gosh, the construction going on in this country is unbelievable. I rode all over the country and looked at a lot of different things, talked to a lot of different business people. It's really fascinating, interesting. I'm not an expert on Kosovo, but they have suffered, and they're doing well, and they're coming back.
But that's what part of your career has been, is to go to places where they're suffering and try to have an influence, try to make a difference there. And I think that's what people really admire about you and respect about you. I want to talk about the Farm Bill. Let's go back to Congress for a minute. So there's a Farm Bill's up for renewal this year, right? And the Farm Bill goes. People don't know the history. The Farm Bill goes back to the days of Franklin Roosevelt and FDR, and but it has to be renewed once every 5 years. I think.
Once every 5 years. The Farm Bill. It's a large bill. It's got 12 titles. It's over 1,000 pages. And it has everything in there from, well, you can imagine. I mean, but it has a lot to do with feeding the country and feeding the world. And it's sometimes a very difficult bill to pass, because you have the farm legislators on one side. You have the city legislators that there are not a lot of farms in cities, major cities. And then you have water people, like out west. Who's going to get the water? It's Montana and Idaho against California. I mean, there's a whole bunch of factions that come into this. But actually, the Farm Bill has more to do with hunger than, in my opinion, than anything, because the SNAP bill and all the things that happen in that bill are very important for hungry people.
So it's been something if you've spent your career when you're in Congress, you're probably an advocate of the Farm Bill and continue to be so.
Well, it is. The one thing about the Farm Bill is that the SNAP program is probably the best anti-program we have in the country. And It helps more than 70,000 people in Montgomery County.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
The Census, but it's so important because the Census Bureau just announced that child poverty in America doubled between 2021 and 2022. It's the biggest increase ever.
After the pandemic.
After the pandemic, but
Had some influence on that.
members of Congress cut the programs.
Oh, I see.
They
Yeah.
let a lot of the programs expire. So it's a problem. So that's why the Farm Bill is so important. It funds all these programs like SNAP and WIC and food banks, and all these things come together with that Farm Bill. That Farm Bill is very important.
And so my understanding, so it's up for renewal here before the end of the year, or
Yes, I'm not sure the date on it. We always, our fiscal year starts,
is it October 1st?
October 1st, that's right.
October 1st, so but it'll start this weekend
Well,
if the government doesn't shut down.
I worry about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I worry
And so
about-
things like the Farm Bill get caught up in all of this.
Get caught up in it.
all this and just
People get hurt.
and it hurts people.
Absolutely.
That's what we lose sight of the fact that these types of things end up hurting people.
There's no question about it. They really do. And a lot of people, if they don't pass this budget, a lot of people are going to go without food. And you're going to see it. You're going to see it in your food banks eventually, and and malnutrition creeps in, and childhood poverty, the whole thing.
Well, Ambassador, I am, again, you're just one of the people that I certainly admire, and as I've had my career growing up here in Dayton, I've always respected you and the work that you do, because I know it comes from your heart, and because it means it's not just a paycheck or a job to you, it's a calling, and I respect that and admire that.
Well, thank you, Keith, and I appreciate you so much and your great service you've given to this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we want to thank Ambassador Tony Hall for being our guest on this month's episode of Odds and Ends, and we will see you next time. Thank you all for joining us.